So, welcome back to the Black Rose podcast. I'm Nicole and
I am Emma.
This is Emma. So, Emma is also my coach, so it's really nice having you here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel honoured. This is my first in-person podcast. So
Is it?
yeah, I always do them virtually.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's nice to be talking to somebody face to face and not just
Instead of over like camera.
Yeah, via Zoom, which always ends up glitching and you're like, what if this isn't
And
recording?
then it just freezes or something and you're like, they're on the screen.
Yeah. And you're like, you know that you've frozen and you're just like, please, for the love of God, let this still be recording. So
Yeah.
this is nice. This is less stressful.
Yeah, less stressful. It's my first time like hosting a podcast, so it's something new for both of us.
Yes. Well, I was about to say it's my first time being a guest. That's a big lie. I've been a guest on lots of podcasts. I was trying to make you feel better.
You kind of did. You did. So how are you feeling today? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I am currently 1 week post photo shoot.
Nice.
So the first week or two post diet can sometimes be a little bit rough, but I've actually been doing really well. I feel really good. Like even today in the gym, I was like, oh, I actually don't despise the way that I look, which is
okay. That's a really good sign.
That's a rarity for me. Like so soon, you know, with kind of reversing, like seeing the scales go up. But I'm really trying to like go into this reverse with a very open mind and just being like, I'm gonna nail this. It's gonna go well. I'm not gonna look worse. I'm gonna look better.
100%. And I think that's so like important as well to actually like just stay positive, because some people just get negative and then it just
and it, like post diet is hard, like because you've just spent so long working towards that one goal and like seeing yourself get leaner, seeing the scale go down. But I also have to remember there were so many days when I was dieting that I was like, I am so ready to be finished, and I was complaining about the fact that I was so small. So now I have a chance to actually make myself not small.
Exactly.
So just trying to enjoy it. And obviously I'm home in Ireland, so it's kind of I've actually been so busy I haven't had time to think about how I look.
That's a good thing. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, I've been like running around here, there and everywhere. So it's all positive vibes. So yeah, I'm doing good. Can't complain.
Good. So glad to hear that.
Thanks.
So glad to hear that. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and like how you got into fitness and how you got into bodybuilding and stuff?
Yes,
just
of course.
Tell us a little bit. Tell us everything.
Tell me the life story. So I am 27. I'm nearly 28. Cries and old.
Still young.
My 30s are fast approaching, but that means I've been kind of going to the gym for like 10 years, which is
that's a very long time.
Crazy to think. So I kind of got into fitness because I was always a bit overweight as a kid. Now I wasn't like a morbidly obese child, but I was always, I'd say from the age of like 10, I was conscious that I was a bit bigger.
Okay.
So that was like a really common theme throughout my teenage years. Like I would try and diet. Sometimes I would lose weight just like naturally as a teenager, but I always felt like I gained it back.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how to diet. Like this was back when it was like, oh, you want to diet, just don't eat, or you know, just eat salad all the time. Like I went through the periods of all the stupid diets. Like I did the grapefruit diet, I did drinking green tea for
I did that one as well.
20 litres of green tea, the skinny teas, the booties, like I did all of that.
Just everything.
Yeah, like anything to avoid.
All the Instagram, like not even Instagram, but all the like trends.
All the trends, anything to avoid actually like, you know, doing the work of being in a deficit. But I didn't even, this was back before, everybody knows what a calorie deficit is now.
Yeah.
Like everybody, but back then.
Nobody actually knew.
No, the concept of calories was still so new. So, so I kind of always struggled on and off my weight. And then when I was around 16, 17, this was when Instagram started to take off. Some people were starting to pop up on YouTube. So I started watching them. Gymshark was just starting. So the kind of OGs like Nikki Blackheader, Robin Gallant, those girls were starting getting popular.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing them and I was like, oh, like these girls are lifting weights and they're trying to build muscle. And that seemed really cool to me because I think even at that age, I always knew like I was never going to be a small, skinny person. I'm not. Like naturally, I'm not. I'm built. Like I'm hefty. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, that's something that I could potentially do. So yeah, I just sort of got into the gym that way. Now, obviously started like not a clue what I was doing like the 30-day squat challenge, or I would just do sets of bicep curls and body weight squats. Like that's all I knew how to do. Like would go to the gym in my school, which was like gym is a very loose term. It was a room with some machines, but you know, that was still my introduction. And I think I could just like naturally evolved from there, and I started to learn more and more. I got quite lucky that early on I found like the kind of evidence-based people. So people like Jeff Nippard, Stephanie Buttermore started doing some of like their training programs. So kind of would start following
more of a structured.
Yeah, more structure, like learning more about nutrition. Like I started doing like nutrition courses and listening to loads of podcasts. And like the whole time it was just for me. Like I just wanted to learn how to make my own journey better. But obviously along the way you end up accumulating so much knowledge, and that's kind of why I suppose I ended up becoming a coach. But yeah, I think, and then the whole way just sort of always followed bodybuilders, and you know, I was always a bit fascinated by the sport, but I just always thought like, oh, I could never do that, because I struggled really badly from the age of like 17 to like 22 with like binging, like really bad. Again, I'm always conscious of saying I had binge eating disorder because I wasn't diagnosed, but knowing what I know about the diagnosis, I know I had it because it was like constant repetitive eating in secret, massive guilt, massive shame.
I've been the exact same, so I completely get that. Eating
foods I didn't like just to fill myself, like I went through that, and so that was something I had to work on like loads. And I think because I had that, I just thought like, oh, I could never compete, because like I just don't have the discipline to stick to it. But then I think it was like 2019, I did a diet with a coach, and it was actually a really successful diet. And it was that diet that showed me I could stick to a diet. Yeah. And I think once, I say this to clients all the time, once you prove to yourself that you can do that, no one can take that away from you. And it just changes your entire perspective. Because I used to always be scared of dieting, because I just in my head had a negative association. I was like, well, I know I'm going to try, and I'm going to say that I'm dieting, I'm going to say I'm trying to lose weight, but I probably won't ever be able to do it properly. And so that diet, I actually, you know, I mean, to me at the time, I got really lean. Obviously, now that I've competed, I can see that it wasn't that lean. But, you know, the first time you do it, you're like, oh, I'm shredded, bro.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, just from there, just kind of, that really started to spark my interest in, like, maybe competing one day. And then when COVID happened, I was like, oh, well, why not? I've got nothing else to do. Why not commit myself to this goal? And so then I did my first season in 2022 and haven't looked back since. And that along the way became a coach, because you can't just be a bodybuilder, you also have to be an online coach as well.
Can't be just one.
No, the full meme package. I just don't live in Dubai. That's the only thing.
For now.
Yeah, for now. I don't know. Marbella is pretty good.
Marbella sounds good.
Yeah,
it sounds good.
Yeah.
So then, how did you find your experience with like your first proper like season?
It was very interesting. I think competing and like prepping is such a like spiritual experience in a way. Like, and what I mean by that is a prep will uncover like anything that you haven't worked on. So like for me, I never realized how much I had like self-doubt issues. Like the whole prep, I was like, I'm so bad, I'm so shit. I'm not going to do well, I'm not going to do well.
Even though you did amazing.
Well, even when I started winning, and I was like, it was a fluke. Yeah. I'm not going to do well. And like to the point that it was crippling, to the point that I didn't enjoy some of my show days because I was so nervous. And that's like ever since then I've just been like trying to work on that. But it's like now that I've seen it, I'm like, oh Jesus, this is like a very common theme. But in general, like the prep itself, I loved it, right? Like I loved prepping. I had started working with my coach like 2 years before we started prep.
So that's a long time for them to actually like, get to know you and stuff.
Yeah, he was able to know my body. We had spent a lot of time building muscle, like building my food up. And so I think like I had been looking towards this for so long that I was like, oh my God, I'm finally doing it. Like I finally get to be that person that I've always wanted to be. So I did really enjoy the process. Like even, I didn't find, like prep is challenging, but I didn't necessarily find it like super hard. I think I spent the whole prep waiting for it to get like so difficult, but I was lucky in a sense. You know, my food, it never had to get super low. My cardio never got super high. You know, I was lucky.
So it was still kind of like just normal, like wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, I think cardio, I only ever did it on a rest day. I think the highest it got was like 45 minutes in the last like 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, that's not bad at all.
No, it was fine. Like it was fine. And then food wise, I think maybe like 1,500 for a few weeks towards the end.
Still like,
it was honestly fine. obviously I had a long prep. Like I think by the end it was like a 31-week prep. So having that long, and also because I was, you know, doing the natural shows and I was in figure, I didn't have to be like shredded.
Yeah.
So it meant that I didn't have to like push quite as hard. But yeah, like now, like it's funny because now I've obviously prepped a lot of people myself, and I'm like, I always feel bad when I'm like, yeah, we're going to double cardio. Yeah, we have to go to 1,100 calories.
Has to be done.
It has to be done. But I will say, like, since I've prepped and I've done other diets since then, I have actually had to push harder. So, you know, maybe I was just just lucky in that prep, I guess. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how high your cardio is or how not high it is or your food. Like, being that lean, it's going to feel rough by the end.
100%.
You know, for me, like, training. Oh my God, training by the end.
It gets tough, doesn't it?
I hate it. Because you start to really resent your sessions. So you're in there and you're like, I just want to get this over and done with and go home and eat. And I really don't like feeling that way. And
you don't even enjoy the session because you know you have so much more like in you, but you're just not able to.
Yeah, because it's, and also like you're seeing yourself get weaker. By the end, like it's gonna happen. And that is a shit feeling when you're, you know, we're the same. We love training.
Yeah.
That's why I do it. Like I do this because I just love being in the gym. I love having that goal. So that was like one of the hardest things, or just like feeling cognitively not there. Like obviously as a coach, you have to be switched on and motivating to people. And it's kind of hard to do that. Like it's kind of hard to be like compassionate to someone who's talking about how hungry they are when they're on like 2,000 calories and you're like on so much less. Literally, you're just like, come on, bro. Like, it's like, oh, I couldn't get to the gym because, or blah, blah, blah. And you're just like your actual like sympathy is like in the bin, and you're just like, I don't care.
No.
So that was hard. Like I remember just finishing the prep and being like, I can't wait to just have time to like give back to my clients and my business.
Yeah.
But no, like I loved it. I mean, I must have liked it because I want to do it again.
Yeah.
So
true.
I didn't finish it and be like, I ain't never doing that again.
Well, some people do that, don't they? They're just like, they hate it and they don't want to do it again.
Yeah, and you know what? It's usually the people who like rush into it a lot. Like I see this all the time. People who are like, oh, I've been training for a little while. Maybe I'll do a show.
Yeah, maybe I'll just compete, see how I get on.
Yeah, and it's like, you've no business doing that. And then they have a terrible experience and then they're like screaming about it afterwards. Like, bodybuilding ruined my life. It's going to give you an eating disorder. And it's like, no, it did that to you because you shouldn't have done it in the first place. Like, if someone comes to me and wants to compete, I'm like, we need to figure out why you want to do this. And like, is it going to be the right goal for you? Like we've been working together 2 years. It's like,
it flew by.
I know, it's crazy. But it's like, you said you were willing to wait, and that to me always makes the biggest difference. If someone's like, I have to do it now, that's a bit of a red flag. Yeah, but it's like, what's the rush? Also, like, the more time you give, the better. Like, if you had prepped last year, like, you would not look the way you do now at all. But it's because you've taken so long. And now, think about how much I know about your body.
100%. And even when we did my photo shoot prep last year, like, I feel like I didn't look as good as I was hoping I would.
Yeah.
I thought I had so much more muscle, and I was just skinny.
So, do you know what? This is like it. Everybody thinks that they have way more muscle than they do. And
then they get shredded, and it's like,
oh no, you don't.
No.
And I think that part of that is like, as you progress as like an athlete, your ability to retain muscle gets better. You know, like the first time you diet, like because you can be so focused on the dieting part, and you're like, I need to just get lean. So you're like pushing yourself. You're doing more. But actually, like when we're prepping, and that's why we're doing it differently this time around, of like a longer prep with more breaks, and hopefully not having to push you as hard, is that will help because you will retain muscle more. But yeah,
which is always the goal.
It's not a dieting contest. It's bodybuilding. Yes, you should be spending more of your time building and growing and putting on muscle.
Than in a deficit.
Yeah, 100%, which I think a lot of people forget that part.
I think a lot of people just don't want to put on that little bit of fat. Like, they're too scared.
Yeah, I know. And it's like,
it's all part of the process.
It literally doesn't matter. I think I actually just had a call with a girl last night who she's, wants to gain muscle, but she's really scared of putting on weight. And she was like, will I gain body fat? And I was like, yeah. And? And it's like, I really had to question her on that. I was like, it's just energy
little bit
on your body. But also, if you're somebody who's training really hard and you're eating a good diet, as long as you don't take the piss, you're not going to look like someone who's never set foot in a gym.
Yeah.
I know as females it can be a bit harder because when we get a bit soft and hefty, it's not quite the same. Like, see when a man gets like big, it's like you can tell he gyms.
Oh yeah.
You're like, all right, big man, you gym. Whereas sometimes with females, you can feel just a bit like, I just look big.
Yeah.
But like that's to you, right? Like
anyone else that looks at you, they're like, wow.
They would think you look amazing. Like even I like say the end of my last gaining phase, I'm like, oh my god.
I thought you looked amazing.
Like everybody says that, and I'm like, I was so fat.
See, like you weren't at all though. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you always think you look worse, but it's always worth it, right? Because like even now that I've dieted, I'm like, okay, I had to do that to look the way I look now. Like you don't get to have the end result of being
without being
jacked.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, and like it's an uncomfortable sport. Whether you're dieting or building muscle, like you're gonna be uncomfortable. And I think a lot of people, like I personally actually find it harder to be in a gaining phase at the end.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Like a prep, like being dieted out of your mind is really hard, and you do feel crappy and you feel draggy, but you also are very like driven because you've got that date that you're working towards.
Yeah, that's
and like
true.
It's also, I mean, like when you work really hard, it's really nice to feel like you look like you should. So like, you know, when I'm shredded, right? Like, 'cause here's the thing. I think sometimes people are scared to say this. I love when I look like that because I love this sport, and like that to me is like you look like you're in the sport.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun in that sense. So like, don't get me wrong, I have days where I'm like, fuck this, I'm so tired, I'm so hungry. But then you go in the gym, you do a few sets of like lateral raises, and you're like, damn, I look really good. That's really cool. But when you're in a phase and like you're actually doing it properly, you feel so low in energy and sluggish because you're so heavy. Training feels like I'd be on the bottom of a leg press. I'm like, my stomach is gonna explode.
That happened to me every time we did a gaining phase. I'd be like, it's just
there. It just
gets in the way.
Yeah, and like you're eating, or you don't want to eat. Like nothing tastes good anymore. Like and then you're also like, oh, like I still have to stay here for a while. I actually do find that harder. And I know a lot of bodybuilders who would say the same. Like that part is harder. You get like 10 weeks where you get to feel good. Yeah. Whether it's like at the very end of your diet and the first 10 weeks of your reverse, or like in the middle of your diet, just before you get so lean that you start to feel crappy. Like that time you get to feel like good. Yeah. The rest of the time it's like you're either too fat or you're too small. And I say that to people, it's like, just know if you sign up for bodybuilding, like you're signing up for a life.
Never going to be happy with how you look.
Dissatisfaction.
Always.
Like always. So, but it's great. I love it though.
Yeah.
Best sport ever.
It is. So you did figure, but now you're going into wellness.
Yes.
So there's obviously
differences there. Yeah. So for females, whether you're kind of looking at like the natural federations or the IFBB, NPC, or even like the PCA, the classes and categories tend to be the same. Now, they might be different federation to federation, like slightly, but in general, you start with bikini. So bikini would be the smallest, the least amount of muscle, the least amount of conditioning, so the less lean. And then as you go up, so the next class up is usually wellness. Wellness is sort of in between bikini and figure in the sense that the upper body is quite like bikini, but the lower body is really big. So most classes are quite balanced in terms of like you should be similar amount of muscle top to bottom, but wellness is different. It's all lower body. So you should have really big legs, big quads, big hamstrings, big glutes, but then as proportionately smaller upper body. It is leaner than bikini, but not quite as lean as figure. And then the next one up is figure. So then you've got figure, then women's physique, then bodybuilding. So each one of those, if you were to look at the athletes beside each other, it's a similar shape and structure, but it's just getting more muscle, more lean. So basically it gets more extreme. Okay. You know, so it starts, bikini would be like entry level, right? So like technically, could you train for a year or two and do a bikini show? If you've got the genetics to put on muscle quickly, you could. Could you train for a year or two and do like physique? Probably not. You would probably look very small on stage. Even wellness now, like the girls are
insane,
massive, right? They're massive. So So that's kind of like how it works. And in terms of like knowing what category you're going to suit, it really comes down. Genetics is always the first thing, right?
Okay, yeah.
Genetically, like you cannot go against your genetics. So for example, before I even started competing, I would have been too big for bikini, and I'm not a bikini shape because I'm quite stocky. Like I'm kind of thick, you know, especially my lower body, it's very thick, right?
Yeah.
But then
So jealous of her quads.
Thanks.
So jealous.
I've been trying to grow them.
Same, but it's not working.
They will. But
hopefully.
Then, for example, so figure. So I did figure in the natural federations because wellness didn't exist back then. And it was the category that made the most sense for me because, like I said, I was too big for bikini. The one thing though for me, and the reason that I don't do figure anymore, is I'm very narrow up top. Like my actual shoulder width or clavicular width is quite small. So for me to be competitive at figure, where you're supposed to have that big wide shoulders back, I could do it, but I'd have to work so hard to bring up my upper body. I don't want to. Like I actually like my upper body the size that it is. Whereas I always got feedback from judges of like, your lower body is quite dominant. So it kind of was like, well, I may as well go with that one. So
it does make sense.
So genetically I suited like wellness, but for example, I've had loads of girls come to me recently who want to do wellness, and I just have to say to them, like, you're 5'8" and your legs are so long, you're never going to be able to do wellness. Like it's not going to work for you. So really, like, how do you know? Like you kind of have to stand in the poses and like see how you look,
see what looks best on you,
and usually get somebody, like, you know, get a coach to tell you, you know, like for example for you it was like you maybe could have done bikini, but you also have like a really wide upper like top line, and your back is really good, so it's like, well, it would be a bit of a waste to do bikini. But then, and
that's the thing what you said with the poses as well, like when I tried the bikini poses, I did not feel comfortable at all. And
that's the thing, and you really do have to, like, yes, genetics, that is the first thing, but also what category are you excited by? I was just talking to Zoe because she was going to do figure, but she actually was like, I actually really want to do NPC bikini, and I was like, if you, and also it suits her because she's like 5'8", and the bikini girls tend to be quite tall and like long.
I've actually noticed that.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh well, I was like, if that's the one that you're excited by, that's the one that we're gonna do, because if you're working to fit into a class that you don't necessarily love
and you don't feel comfortable in,
like you're never gonna put the work in as much. So it's kind of like a combination. And the thing is, like, you can grow into a lot of the classes, right? Like you might not look like figure right now, but maybe with 2 years of work you would. So a lot of it comes down to time. Like you'll notice, especially in natural federations, like the figure girls and the physique girls tend to be a bit older because it takes time.
It does.
You know? So I think like I know as a coach, if I look at somebody, I can see their structure.
Yeah,
like
you kind of know, you can tell what
yeah,
will fit
like
them
if
best.
someone has a wide hip, like hip bones, like wellness maybe. Whereas if they have very narrow hips, they probably will never be wellness. But if they have a wide upper body, it's like, well, you're probably going to be figure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really like the structure of somebody, the genetics, and then what they want to do and what they're motivated to work towards.
Okay, it's good to know for like, just, I know a lot of people would kind of find it so difficult to know which one's which, or like what one to go for. Like I know a girl and she was kind of like, I don't know what one would suit me. So,
and that's where you just have to have somebody that you can ask who knows, and also who knows, because like, again, PCA bikini is completely different to NPC, is very different to the National Federation. So you need to have a coach who actually understands and like watches the shows and can put you in the place where you're going to suit, because you don't really want to go to a show and like do badly because you shouldn't have done that one, you know, because at the end of the day there's so many different places to compete, and it's not to say that you should only do shows where it's easy and you're going to win, but it's more so you should do shows that actually are going to suit your physique, because there is so much variation within them, and there's so many opportunities now to compete. Like it used to be back in the day, it was like bikini or figure. And even actually for a long time bikini wasn't even a thing. It was like,
oh really?
Yeah, like bikini, I mean now it's been around for like, I mean 10-15 years, but, and you should see as well like how it has changed. You know, if you went back and looked at like the first Miss Bikini Olympia, like, oh my god,
look completely
hilarious
different.
Like hilarious to see the difference. Like all of the categories have changed so much. Like even figure, like the girls who used to win figure, like they were natural. And now the figure in NPC, like they're not natural, like they are huge. So it is crazy to see how it's evolved, and that's just because it gets more extreme. Like every year people push the boundary of like how big they are, how lean they are, and then if they win, that's the new standard. It's like, oh well, now everybody has to be like that. So
everyone just wants to be like the best out of the best.
Yeah, because that's really how it works, right? You're always looking at who's Miss Olympia, who's the world champion. I'm gonna look like her. That's kind of like what everybody should be aiming for. And so if that person gets more extreme, well now everybody else does, and that's kind of how it like, that's how you kind of slowly get like this like gradual creep of like people getting more and more jacked as the years go on. But then every once in a while they'll like bring it back, and they'll be like, okay, no, like that's too extreme. We're going to award something that's a bit different. Like bikini in particular, in the IFBB, like a few years ago, Issa Pacini won, and she was like everybody lost their minds because she was so jacked. And then they started awarding again, like Jennifer Dory, who's very like soft and feminine. So they, you know, that's so them.
It always changes.
That's them being like, okay, we took it too far. We took it too far. Let's come back.
Okay, so then, what can you expect like a prep to look like for bodybuilding? Like, and what are some non-negotiables that just in a prep
process? So I mean, it's essentially it's a calorie deficit, right? So it's stick to your meals and weigh all your foods, account for everything, do your cardio as prescribed, do your steps as prescribed. So it's everything that you would expect, but the adherence has to be 100%, right? It's like you can't just have an extra biscuit, you can't just skip your cardio, you can't just not do your training. Like it is all executed to the T. I mean, you can skip it, you're gonna lose. And like, what's the point in committing to it? Like,
if you're not gonna
do it properly, like, don't bother. Just do a normal lifestyle diet. So there's like that side of it, which is like the technicalities of like how to diet. Obviously, you still have to be training hard, training progressively, but then you've got things like posing, right? So like posing is so hard.
It's
like,
so hard.
It's so difficult, and like you have to be practicing that like
by the end every day.
By the end every single day, like easily multiple times a day. But then even just from the kind of psychological perspective, it's because you're working towards a very specific date, like there's no room for kind of waiting around. So like, for example, if I have a client and their weight doesn't move for a few days, I have to change things immediately. Whereas if that's a lifestyle client, I'd wait. Like if a lifestyle client,
because they're not in a rush,
they're not time bound, right? So like if a lifestyle client, if their weight hovers for a week, I'll like, okay, we'll wait for another week and see. Whereas, you know, one of you guys, I'm like, no.
We need to make a change.
I like, get rid of that potato immediately. You're getting
no
rice
more
cakes.
oats for you.
Yeah, it's like no. So
that's literally what you did. Get rid of the potatoes, put the rice cakes in.
Yeah. Fun.
Miss the potatoes sometimes.
I know. It's okay. Potatoes will come back soon.
They will.
But rice cakes for now. But yeah, so it's a lot more like pressure. There's a lot more pressure because you are like, okay, shit, I have to be ready.
Like you have a time.
Yeah, I have to be ready by a certain day. You know, and so really that comes down to like the coach managing the prep well and making sure that your start point is good, you know, making sure that you're not starting with like 60 pounds to lose, like all of these things. And that's why when we talk about a prep, like that's just one part, but it's actually so much more work that you do before that.
So much more that goes into it.
Like again, we started like 2 years ago, we went into a gaining phase, then we did a photo shoot prep, then we went back into a gaining phase, then we did our pre-prep diet, then we maintained, now we're in prepping. And like
so it's a long process.
It's a long process, and all of those phases have to be executed with, you know, effort, right? And they're all mapped out. You know, I planned all of those in advance so that you knew what you're doing, I know what you're doing. But yeah, I think it's just like the level, and also like being realistic within a prep, like especially for females, especially for small females, they're going to be extreme, right? Like I know I said, I got away with not having to go that extreme, but like again, I've seen girls, I've had girls 1,000 calories, sub 1,000 calories. I'm not saying that's good, I'm not saying that's healthy, I'm saying sometimes that's what you have to do to get the job done.
Sometimes it is, yeah.
And unfortunately it is just part of it. Like if someone's 45 kilos,
their food is gonna have to
it's gonna go low, you know. I mean, we're talking like very little carbs, you know, we're talking multiple cardio sessions across a day, like potentially like weighted vests,
yeah.
you know, like
I can't wait to start wearing that again. I actually just love it.
Oh no.
Just feel like I'm in the army or something.
That's so funny. We'll see, give it a few more weeks. But you know, like it is, it might be, you know, like it's not unheard of to be on 2 hours of cardio a day, right? And again, I think it's like a lot of people want to pretend like that's not the case. A lot of coaches like to pretend that like they don't have to push people, but like, I mean, if they're not pushing people, then the people probably aren't getting that lean anyway.
Yeah,
but
they're not getting the results that they want.
Yeah, and thing is, right, like as a coach, like it's not my job to make it easy for you. It's my job to get you the results.
Yeah.
And if I have to push you harder, I have to do it. And the thing is, like, especially females are insane. If I tell you to eat shit, you're going to eat shit. Like, because you're so driven towards the goal. So yeah, like it can get tough and it can get extreme, but like that's literally part of the sport, and you can't really complain if it happens because you've kind of asked for it. You know?
True.
Now, obviously, if you manage to prep well and again you start someone in a good position, you hopefully won't have to do that as much. You'll have time to do things like refeeds, diet breaks, because again, big part of a prep is like managing somebody's fatigue, because if you're super under recovered, you're not going to train hard, you're potentially going to lose muscle. That's not a good thing if you're trying to be the most muscular version of yourself on stage. So it's not just dieting. It's not just like run someone into the ground.
Yeah.
It's an art of like knowing when to push somebody, when to pull them back.
Yeah. Just having that teeny tiny bit of balance.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of like what it looks like. Again, it looks different for everybody on paper. I like some people, like I know some men who can diet on 3,000 calories. I know some men who have to diet on 1,500 calories.
Yeah, it's just different for everybody.
Everybody's different, and like it's always actually really interesting for me as a coach to see how different people go. Like, I know you have to push pretty hard. Like, and again, I knew that it was good that we did that photo shoot prep, because I knew I can't waste time being like, oh, let's go on 1,800 calories.
Let's
like
just keep our food high.
Yeah, it's like no, she's gonna have to go low, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Example, like Zoe, her food was like well over 3,000 calories in her gain phase. So I thought she was gonna not have to go too low. And I think I've earned 1,400 calories now. Like we've had to pull her calories down a lot. And I'm like, that is crazy to me. Yeah. But again, people are adaptive.
So different.
People are different. I have some people who they'll never go below 1,700, and I can't predict it until I put them through the prep. Yeah. And for me, I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. Yeah. So yeah. But that's kind of what it would look like, and then obviously the mental side is different. Like I said at the start, it's a very like spiritual experience of like you will learn so much about yourself and like how resilient you can be and how much you can push yourself or not. A lot of people start preps and don't finish them, and that's not
I've heard so many people say that.
And you know what? There's no shame in that.
And to be honest, I actually did that before as well. Like when I was 19, I was like, okay, I think I want to do it. So like I started a prep, lasted about 2 months maybe, and I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no, so there's no shame in it. Like it's one of the hardest things somebody will ever do.
It is. It's so hard.
It's very challenging, but it's also really rewarding. Yeah. If you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I think you need to be in like the right headspace as well for it. Yeah. Because if you're not, you're gonna hate it.
100%. Like even this year, so many people were asking me, "Are you secretly prepping?" And even like Christian was like, will we just do a show? And I was like, I'm not there. No. Like my brain isn't, I'm not excited by the thought of it. Whereas I know next year I will be.
You will be.
So like you have to be in the right frame of mind, and it has to be the right time in your life as well. Like I waited until 2022 specifically because I was in college the year before. I didn't want to be like, even though I was only, I would have been basically finished and like doing my exams at the start of the prep. I want to be able to go and enjoy the fact that I finished college. I didn't want to be, I finished university, I'm prepping. Like that, it has to, your stress should be low. Like, don't be trying to prep when, you've got like 7 million things going on.
Yeah, it has to be the right time as well.
Yeah, because you want to be like monk mode, like able to do the same thing every day. Like it's really boring. I didn't say that, but like it's super monotonous, right? It's like you wake up, eat at the same time, train at the same time, steps at the same time. It's so routine, and so if you
I love it though.
I've always been like that. Yeah. I've always been the person who just thrives in routine, and again, I think if you're like that,
you're gonna
bodybuilding's for you. Whereas if you're someone who like gets bored easily, bodybuilding's not for you, because bodybuilding's boring. It's so boring.
It's and lonely as well.
Yeah, it is. It can be a very like isolating sport. I think it depends. Like, yeah, at the end you are quite isolated because you're just like in your bubble. But I've also made some of my best friends through bodybuilding.
Okay.
And when you find the right people,
they will support
really
you no matter what.
Yeah, it's nice, but I think it's also really good to have friends outside of it because like
it takes your mind off things.
Yeah, honestly, like see having a conversation with somebody and they don't talk about calories and macros. It's
you're like wow.
It's such a nice break. It feels so fucking good. Or just have somebody and they're not asking you about your training.
Yeah.
It is really nice. So I do think you have to have the balance, but it is a weird one, right? Like a lot of people aren't going to get it, but I'm very lucky. Like all my friends who aren't into it, they support me so much, and they're always like, "It's so cool what you do."
Yeah.
Which is obviously nice. Like, don't get me wrong, I've had friends in the past who didn't get it, and they're not my friends anymore because they're fucking assholes.
Just need to surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah, because the right people like love you because of you.
Yeah.
And like, I have no problem going out for food. Well, for food, I don't have no problem going out to a restaurant and not eating. If I get to be with my friends, like I will bring a prep meal or just have a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
So
it's literally the case of actually being able to spend time with people.
Yeah, it's about the experience of socializing, and you can do that without eating. And I know a lot of people be like, "Oh, how can you stand to be around like pizza or whatever when you're dieting?" It's like, because I'm choosing to diet.
Yeah.
Like it's my like
no one's actually making you do it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people when they are dieting, and this goes for like a prep or a lifestyle diet, they act like a victim. Oh, I can't have that. Oh my god, like no.
Yeah.
Oh, poor me. I'd love to have that. And it's like
just
you're
get
deciding
over
it.
yourself.
Like it's like get over yourself. Like you're the one who's put you through this.
Literally.
It's that does my head in.
And a lot of people do it.
Oh, so many. Like I have clients say all the time, like, "Oh, my boyfriend got a takeaway," and I'm like, "So." Literally, he's allowed. Like, don't be that person who's like, "Oh, I can't believe you'd eat that in front of me." Like, how weak-willed are you? Like, come on. Like, come on. You know? And that's something that you get better at with time. Like, I know, like, I'm sure when I was younger I would have been like that too, but again, it's like, well, I want the outcome of looking my best on stage, and I know that if I eat that, that's not going to happen. So it's actually really easy for me to say no. I also really, really love, this sounds really vain, but see if you're in a group of people and like say you're not eating or not drinking and they're like, "Oh, you're so disciplined, I could never do that." I'm like, I know. I love it because like I have in a way like given myself that identity of like the disciplined person. So when I hear other people say it, I'm like, yeah, I know. So
and deep down they wish they were like that as well.
That's the thing, if somebody has something negative to say about it, it's because they're jealous. Like 1000%.
100%.
If you're
like, you never hear anyone that's successful talk bad about anybody.
Someone who's above you won't talk down.
No.
Like, it just doesn't happen.
No.
Whereas, I get this with clients who maybe they work in an office and there's that fucking negative Nelly who's like, "Are you eating that again? You won't have a biscuit?"
Yeah.
And they're probably like 50 pounds overweight and could never say no to something. So they feel the need to drag you down. And it's like, you just have to have a really thick skin. And again, that's something that you can only do through practice. You know, a lot of people are people pleasers and they care way too much. I think I'm lucky in a way. I actually just don't give a fuck what other people think. As long as
that's a good thing.
Yeah, as long as I know I'm a good person and I'm not doing something to harm somebody, why would I care if somebody else cares what I'm eating? And I've had this with my family, right? Like, they're much better now because now I've competed. I think they can see that this is actually just the way that I live my life. But when I was younger and I was making these healthy changes, it was constantly like, "Why are you eating that? What are you doing?" And I would just say to them, like, "Can you just not talk about the food I'm eating? Let's just not comment on it."
Just let me do my thing.
Yeah, and once you've said it a few times, they're like, they get it, right? And they stop saying it. Except, well, my grandmother, she used to. It didn't matter what I said. She would just always ask. So by the end, you're just like, whatever. But,
I think that's the thing with grandparents.
It's a granny thing.
It's always like, just eat that little biscuit.
I know.
Do you want some more cake?
And it's so funny because they're like, "Jeez, you've got really thin. Jeez, you've got really fat." You're just like...
My family's like that as well. Every time I go over, I look different. And they're like, "You're after putting a lot of weight." And then next time they're like, "Oh,
you're so skinny.
Are you sure you're okay?"
I know. When I got home the other week and my mom opened the door, she was like, "Emma, you're very thin." I was like, "Fuck yes." She was like, "You need to put on weight." So then she made me some cake.
I love that.
Yeah. So like, but again, like, if you're going to choose to go down this route, you have to get used to people that are going to comment on it because it is weird. It is so weird. Like, when you're in the bubble of bodybuilding, you just think it's so normal to track your calories, do your training, take pictures in your underwear and send them to somebody that you don't know.
Literally.
You know what I mean? Like today I was like taking my tracking pictures and I'm like, what would my mom say if she knew I was sitting here in my heels, posing, sending these pictures to this man that I met on the internet? She'd be like, what the fuck? So when you say it out loud, and then on the show day, it's like, I'm going to paint myself brown, get up on stage in my pants. It is so fucking weird.
It is. Like, to us, it just sounds normal. But people that have no idea about it, they're like,
why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
So you just have to be like, you just have to lean into how weird it is. Be like, I know it's weird. And, you know, I remember when we competed, like, you get people and they're like, but why do you do it? But why do you do it? But why do you do it? And I'm like, okay, like, riddle me this. Let's say you enjoy playing guitar. I don't feel the need to ask you 5 million times, why do you like playing guitar?
Yeah, what's so good about it? What's so special about it?
I just accept that you enjoy it. It's like when people, like, I could be like, why do you go out to the pub every single week and do blow?
Yeah.
And I could ask you that 50 times and you'd be like, because I just enjoy it. Same.
I
just enjoy it. I don't know why. I don't know why God put this desire in me to be shredded and lean and stand up on stage. I don't know. Like, honestly, I could have become a gambler. I could have been anything else. This is what I landed on.
Yeah.
So here we are. So let's not just constantly like question about it. I understand that there's risks involved. I know it's weird. I know that it can, you know, potentially damage my health. But like, there's people out there who like smoke every day, drink every week, eat like shit. Those things are just as damaging.
Yeah.
But like, for some reason, I'm the one who's like, oh, like, but like that can't be good for you. It's like, okay, pick your poison.
Exactly.
I know
that's exactly it.
Yeah, it's like, I never said I was doing this because I think it's healthy.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time I am very healthy. Yeah, those last 6 to 8 weeks they're not healthy. Fine.
Yeah.
But like most of the time, like I'm way healthier than you. So
100%.
You know, it's just like just other people are gonna say shit. But I just am very much of the mind of like live and let live. Like I genuinely don't care what other people do. If it makes them happy, if you want to do that, you do that. Let me do my thing. You do yours. That's fine. I support you. Support me. It's cool.
Exactly. And you mentioned about the health risks. So a lot of women probably don't know like the health risks. Cannot speak. Can never get my words out. So a lot of women don't know what risks actually come with bodybuilding. So what do you think about that? Like, what are the main things that women should know before they decide to actually go into bodybuilding?
Yeah, so obviously bodybuilding, when we look at like a prep especially, and being at very low body fat percentages, being in a very big calorie deficit for a long time, it is not good for you. And especially for females, our hormonal system is quite sensitive to that, okay? So it's very common for females who are competing to lose their menstrual cycle. So this is what we call hypothalamic amenorrhea. It's just essentially your body recognizes that you are not taking in enough energy. And so it kind of goes, well, she's barely able to support herself. There's no way she could support a child, right? Yeah. Your body tries to find ways to need less energy. And so one of those things is your hormonal signaling, right? So that hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis, so that's basically the signal from your brain down into your ovaries that produces eggs and ovulation. It kind of goes, whoa, like we need to put the brakes on this. Now, some people might hear that and go, okay, so I'm not going to get my period for a while. That's cool. It's not. Yeah. It's not good for you. Being anovulatory, you are also going to see a suppression in estrogen and a suppression in progesterone, because they all work on feedback. So you're only going to get, say, progesterone after you get an egg released. But if the egg's not getting released, progesterone's not going to get released. If you're not getting that signal from your brain through FSH and LH, you're not going to get that estrogen. So again, being in that state, estrogen, what's that really important for? Your brain health, your bone health, your cardiovascular health, okay? Progesterone as well, really important for other functions. So being in that state, it can lead to potentially things like bone mineral density loss, osteoporosis, potentially brain issues, right? Like, it's not just about fertility, it is about your overall health. Yeah. Now, some females, it's so different. Some girls I know don't even lose their period. I've heard of girls getting their periods on peak week. Now, that's my worst nightmare. But it happens. Now, they are the rare ones. Majority of females will lose their period. Yeah. Some will lose them
and get it back
as soon as they start prep. Some will lose it a month out. Yeah. And this is where we can class people as like resilient and unresilient. I would be what we call unresilient. So I, like, as soon as I start dieting, I lose my period. I have a very sensitive cycle. I've been having a lot of issues with my cycle. So again, I have to go into bodybuilding knowing that there's those risks involved. And like, for me, right, like, I don't particularly care for children. I'm also 27, so I'm old enough to be able to make these decisions of like knowing whether or not I really care about being like a fertile person. I've never liked kids. I still don't. So for me, it's like, I know that there's a potential that like maybe I won't be able to have kids, but I don't. But
you're okay with
because
that.
I made that. I've been like, and I could have said last year I'm going to not bodybuild. I'm going to step away from it and never do it again. But it's not that I've chosen bodybuilding over that. It's that was never a big priority for me anyway. Yeah. But then, like I said, some girls have no issues. So it really does just depend. And obviously that's why post-show, like, you don't stay lean. Yeah. You regain body fat to regain that hormonal cycle. And ideally, there's a reason, like, I don't compete every year. Yeah. So I'm giving my body time to, like, be healthy.
Recover.
And, like, the people who do compete year on year on year, they tend to be the ones who have the most issues there. So if you're someone who, like, having kids is, like, your dream. Yeah. Right? Like, you want to have, and especially say you were like, I want to have kids in 2 years. They probably don't do a prep now. Yeah. Because, first of all, it can take, like, 3 to 6 months to regain a cycle. Then it can take even longer to actually be ovulating and have a healthy body that's going to be able to, like, carry children. So that's, like, that would be the main health concern for females, and that's what it can be hardest on. But then you've also got, like, the mental side of, like, body image, relationship with food.
That's actually what I wanted to touch on as well. So, like, the mental health side of things, obviously, like, your body changes so much. Yeah. So, like, the body dysmorphia, everything.
Yeah, you kind of, like, again, I don't know what I look like. Like, fully, no, like, maybe that's like a bit dramatic, but, like, you know, once you've seen yourself looking like that, right? Yeah. You've seen yourself with a six-pack. You've seen yourself with veins in your stomach and cuts in your legs. It's really hard when that goes away at first, right? And, like, especially, you know, say for me, I had such a long time where I was that lean because I started my shows in September and I was pretty much that lean until November, say. So, but even before September, I was quite lean. So let's say I spent 4 months looking like that. Your brain thinks that that's how you look, like that's your normal. Yeah. And so then you start gaining weight, right? But your brain is like, but I'm not supposed to look like this.
Yeah, like you just start to feel that a little bit uncomfortable.
You spend months being like, I should look different. I should have a six-pack. I should be like this. And you forget that that's not your normal. And, like, that's even something I'm having to, you know, now this time around reversing. I'm like, the way I look now, I cannot be attached to it. And actually, I think to be successful in bodybuilding, you have to be able to practice complete non-attachment to your body because it's actually never going to be the same. You are always either going to be getting leaner or getting bigger, right? Now, obviously, you don't want to be doing it, like, getting leaner, that can happen quite quickly, right? Like, you can get, you know, if you saw how different I looked in the last, like, 16 weeks, right? Like, it was a lot of difference.
It is.
Ideally, I'm not going to go in the next 16 weeks back up to that, right? It will be slower, but you're still, you know, you might have a week or two where you feel really good, but you kind of have to accept in the back of your head, I'm not going to look like this for much longer than a month, and then it's going to change again. Yeah. Now, obviously, when you're settled into your off season, you're kind of at that higher body weight, ideally you shouldn't look drastically different month to month, but, like, you're still going to be, like, looking a bit different. So if you know, even me this week, I'm like, oh, I feel fucking great, but it's like, but I know I won't look like this forever. I know I won't, and I'm like, I always joke, I'm like, I wish my face could look like this all the time. It doesn't, right? Like, I have more fat on my face normally. I have chubbier cheeks. Like, would I love, like, could I stay like this? Yeah. Would I be miserable? Yeah. Like, this, to maintain here, like, it would be hard. It would not be good for my body, right? Like, I would be tired all the time. I wouldn't be able to have a lot of freedom. I wouldn't be able to go out for food a lot. If I wanted, like, you know, I see some fitness influencers who, you know, say they would be my level of leanness. I see what they have to do, right? Like a classic example, Rob Lipsett. Like, if anybody watches his stories, the way that man eats, right? Like, he will literally eat just just protein all day. Like before and after he trains, all he has is like chicken and eggs.
Yeah.
And then he gets to go and have his meal in the evening. That sounds like a miserable existence to
miserable.
me. I couldn't do that. No. Like I need carbs all day.
Yeah, like you need to actually enjoy your food that little bit as well.
Yeah, and like I mean, he pretends that he likes it. I'm like, there's no way that you are enjoying having fucking steak and eggs post workout every day. Like come on, and like it also it can't be good for you. But you know that's what you have to do if you want to stay this way. And like I can tell you now, looking like this is cool, but it's not cool enough to justify that amount of work. Like nobody else really cares. Do you know what I mean? Like yeah, I get people, like don't get me wrong, when you're lean people comment on it and they're like, oh, you look so good. But when I'm not lean, it's not like I become a recluse, and it's not like people stop caring. And again, I think I'm lucky, like I'm not like an influencer, I'm a coach, and so even my page, my Instagram, it's not actually, it doesn't ride on me being lean. Like like I don't post like loads of selfies, right? It's videos, it's informational stuff, so I can do that whether I'm shredded or not. Yeah. So I can understand why for somebody who is, you know, a very influencer type person, that would be really hard to force yourself to stay that way. And I see this as well with a lot of competitors, like they compete every single year because they can't stand to get like fluffy. As soon as they feel uncomfortable, they prep again. Yeah. They're the same people who look the same every single year. They don't make improvements. Whereas I know, like if I want to grow, I have to get you have to chunky. Get uncomfortable. Yeah, it has to happen, right? But it is hard, and I definitely found like post prep especially, because back then I was obviously natural. Like I had no hormones, like none. I had no thyroid, no estrogen, no testosterone. So the way I gained the weight, it was not flattering, because I normally gain weight like quite well, like quite evenly. You know, I mean, I think that my belly gets big, but like I know technically it's quite an even distribution of fat. Yeah. Whereas post show, it was like all to my stomach, and and I looked so bad, and I felt so bad, and it's like I was like, I worked so hard, and like you kind of get in your head, and you're like, people are gonna look at me and think, oh my god.
Whereas no one actually
cares. Nobody cares at all.
Everyone still thinks you look insane.
Yeah, and everybody still, and the thing is, like nobody, like it will never take away from the fact that you still did it. Yeah. And no, like what, 0.5% of the population could even do that. But it is tough. I think the first time is the toughest, and I think I think every time you go through a reverse, you learn the skills of what to do. Like for me, for example, I used to get into the habit of like as soon as I would finish dieting, I would cover myself up, because I'd be like, no, I look worse. Whereas now I'm like, I don't look worse. I still look good. So it's like trying to still be like proud of like, you know, my body and stuff. And just focusing on the good things. Like even like I'm in the gym this week, I'm like, wow, I feel a bit more food. I immediately feel better. I can eat carbs at all my meals. I can, you know, I can plan date nights. And so it's like, it's not fun that you're seeing the lines fade.
No, but you're enjoying life that little bit more.
But think about everything else that you're getting, and like it's like, it's cool to be lean for a while just to show that you can do it, but it's not necessary to be like that. You know, I know like my worth as a human actually doesn't come down to how I look. It's like, obviously, as a coach, my body is part of my business card, but I can still demonstrate that like I know how to do it. I did it before, you know what I mean? So like I don't have to walk around looking like that. And like maybe if I want to, in the future when I finish bodybuilding, maybe I will walk around a bit leaner, but like for now, the sport requires that I don't. Yeah. So it's just part of it.
And how would you reverse out of a diet or like a prep, just like properly without just getting fat straight away?
So obviously the goal post show is to recover. So this is where like it would be a bit different. Like say for example me, right? I just finished a photo shoot prep. I'm not shredded. Yeah. Right? So like I can afford to reverse a bit slower because my health is not compromised right now. You know what I mean? Like also being like an athlete who uses assistants, right? Like I can keep in things like thyroid, hormones. So like I don't have to like immediately recover all that. It's already all there anyway. So I can go a bit slower. You know, we can increase food, like take it week by week. But for someone who's like competition lean, you can't stay there, right? So ideally you would want to see like, obviously it depends on like your weight or whatever, but like maybe like 5 to 10 pounds in the first like 2 weeks, which is quite a lot, but a lot of that is going to be water, glycogen, more food, and then body fat, right? You need that body fat. So the first like week or two, you might see like a bigger bump. Now that doesn't mean like go and eat like an asshole. Like that should come about naturally. And then from there, starting to slow down that kind of rate of gain. So this would be like a recovery diet, right? So like there was in the past, it was kind of popularized to like reverse diet. So like add like 50 to 100 calories every week. But if you're somebody, say you're in a deficit of like 500 calories and you add 50 to 100 calories, you are still in a deficit.
Yeah.
That's not what you want post-show. No. You need to be in a surplus. Like you need to be in a surplus.
You need to eat.
And putting on body fat. And yes, you should be like controlling it, but obviously like there's the perfect reverse on paper, which is like, here's your meal plan, follow your meal plan. But like we're humans. We're humans, right? We're gonna go out for food. We're gonna potentially overeat. So it's kind of having a balance of enjoying those things, but also remembering that like you still have to be adherent. You know, like if you, because I mean I've heard horror stories of people who gained like 30 pounds in a week. Happens. It happens. Okay, so like, and that is so bad for you. It's so unhealthy, you know, like, because the amount of stress that will put on your like cardiovascular system is insane. So you kind of have to, it's a very delicate position post-show where you have someone who's really tired, really fatigued, they want to eat, they want to go out, they're food focused. But as a coach, you're like, I want you to enjoy those things, but also don't forget, like, we have a plan to follow. And we don't just want to, you know, fuck this, because especially if you want to compete again. So that post-show period, you're setting yourself up for your off season. Now, if you gain 30 pounds in a week, how long can that off season be? Not very long. No. You won't be able to spend a lot of time adding food and growing, you know, but then equally you can't diet. Like you can't diet 2 months post-show. I've seen this. I've seen people try and do it. I remember last year there was people who had done the WNBF show in September, starting diets in November, and I was like, bro,
no,
that is
way
not good.
Too close.
It's like if you're doing that, something has gone really wrong. And you shouldn't be dieting until like 6 months post-show at least. So yeah, it's like add food. Obviously you want to start tapering down like cardio, steps, but it all has to work kind of like together. Like you can't just stop doing those things, eat loads, you will get fat super quick. But then this is all like, if you have a client who's like they cannot stick to their diet, you have to put their calories higher. You know, if I have someone who's binging, I have to give them like 2,500 calories. I have to, because then they're going to stick to that and feel good. Whereas if I'm like, we need to keep your calories at 1,800 and then they're constantly overeating, they feel shit.
They do.
They feel shit. Struggle. They're like, they're struggling to adhere to that. They're overeating. So basically it can be a shit show, but it just depends. And that's why like as a coach, way before they finish prep, I'm talking to them about these things, trying to remind them. And I think for me, it's like trying to say to somebody, okay, prep is finished, but if you can think about this diet lasting another 4 to 6 weeks, and if you can
you're gonna put yourself in that
it's
good
like it's gonna be hard. Like the day you finish prep, hunger doesn't go away. If anything, it gets worse. Your food focus is higher, because now that goal is gone.
You feel like you can just have that food.
And you can, but it's also like, but can you and should you? And like the food's always going to be there. I think a lot of people, they're like,
they just feel like they need to eat as soon as they finish, like just everything.
And your body is so sensitive. Like post-show, I remember we had donuts. I got sick. Like I puked in Cheesecake Factory.
No.
Yeah, I couldn't even eat the food that was there. And I was like, oh God, like I felt really crappy. So you kind of have to be very conscious of the fact that your body is really sensitive. And
it's not used to eating those foods anymore either. So it's just like completely new.
You've been eating like clean foods for what, 20, 24 weeks. So usually what I advise is like, okay, the night of the show, go out, have a meal. Okay, you know, do you need to get 4 courses? Maybe not.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you know, and like, you know, maybe try and have something that's, maybe go out for like steak and chips rather than like a really big, dirty pizza.
Yeah, something that's still like healthy enough.
But you're still getting to like go out and enjoy yourself. Yeah. Maybe the next morning have a nice breakfast, but then as soon as you can, just get straight back.
Yeah.
And I think like keep your meal structure the same. Like all my girls now post-shoot, it's and post-show, meal plan.
Yeah.
Meal plan. where I've asked them for all their favorite foods, so I've incorporated them within reason. Because if you put too much of that stuff in, again, if I give you 15 grams of Biscoff, what are the fucking odds you're going to have 15 grams? Very low. You're going to eat spoons. So maybe we keep those things for a few more weeks.
Yeah.
We just keep, and I say, like, eat as much vegetables as you want. Like, eat all of those things, enjoy them. And then once you feel a bit more, like, mentally ready, we can start incorporating those things. Something I'll do is free calories as well. So I'll kind of say, like, here's your meal plan. You can also put 200 calories.
Yeah, you know, just use it for anything that
whatever you want. And that could be, it could be more oats, more potatoes. It could be a chocolate bar. I don't care, but just kind of use your brain. But yeah, like I would say, like, just keep the structure and keep your routine as close as you can to what you're on prep, and just make the portions bigger. And that can help. Like, that really helps people. And then just like constant contact, like just literally messaging people every single day to ask if they're okay.
Just make sure they're fine.
Yeah, just to make sure, because like I think
it is tough. Like, it's
an emotional time, and I think a lot of people can feel very like overwhelmed and alone. Whereas if you have a coach who's like supportive, like, bro, like, because I think you can get in your head of like, oh my god, I ate a chocolate bar. Oh my god, I'm so bad. And if your coach can, like, I think as a coach, it's like not trying to be like, oh, it's fine, but just being like, it's really not that big of a deal. Let's just get back to plan. Yeah, that helps. You know, someone who's like supportive, but also reminds you of like what the goal is.
What the goal is.
Yeah, that helps. But it can be a challenge, and I think every time you do it, you learn. Yeah. About, you know, I know next time I won't fucking go for 4 days in LA of just eating whatever I want, because that probably wasn't a good thing, even though I have no regrets because it was so fun. Yeah. That's what we did post-show. But next time I will probably have my meal out and then straight back to normal the next day, and try and take it a bit slower. It's like, even this reverse, I've learned from the last time I reversed, and I know what to do differently. And like I say it to people all the time, like, you have to fuck up sometimes. Yeah. And like, that's actually the best way to learn. And
it is 100%, and that goes for everything.
Yeah, it's that this whole, I mean, everything in life, but especially with fitness, the most amount of lessons you're going to learn is from the mistakes that you make. Yeah. So yeah, having a coach is great because they can help you make less of the mistakes. Yeah. But even as a coach, when I see my clients going through post-shoot, I kind of just have to let them do it and just be like, it's going to be fine. Like, you know, this isn't going to last forever. You know, give me a few weeks, you will feel normal again. Like, I promise you. And like, it's just being that support of them for them. Like, that's sometimes all you can do. It's like, you'll be fine.
And sometimes that's literally all they need. Just someone there
that
they know they can go to if they need to.
And they know they're not going to be judged by. Yeah. Because like, there's some coaches who are fucking arseholes and would give out to somebody. Like, someone's already struggling. They don't need to be made to feel guilty.
You just
they
make
need
them
to be
feel
heard.
Worse.
Yeah, they just need to be heard and just reminded that they're going to be okay, and just to give a little bit of extra support there. But yeah, it is probably one of the tougher parts, but equally, I think a lot of people go into it really scared because they hear how bad it's going to be, and that makes it worse. Yeah. Whereas if you just go into it and you're like the approach I took was, I know I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm not going to assume that it's going to be a disaster. Yeah. And I think that really helped because it meant when I did mess up, I wasn't like, oh my god, I'm so bad. I was just like, like oops.
You weren't feeling as guilty about it.
Yeah, I was like, oops, ate a chocolate Santa, won't do it again tomorrow. Like, you know, just like little things like that. Whereas I think a lot of people, and I see it go the other way too, where people are almost like scared post-show to eat and gain weight, and that's not good either, because you have to.
You have to put on the weight to be healthy. Yeah. I think we pretty much touched base on everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah. So, is there anything that you would like to add from yourself?
I don't think so. I feel like we've covered a lot here. I'd love to ask you a question. Okay. What have you learned from your prep experience last year that you're taking into this prep?
I think one thing I learned that was definitely to just take it one day at a time. Yeah. I think that's the main thing, because last year I was kind of like focused a lot on just like how I was going to look on the day. Yeah. But then as I started going, I was kind of like, okay, maybe just taking the approach of ticking all the boxes day by day. Yeah. And it got so much easier. Yeah. So that's literally what I've been doing this time around, is just every single day I'm like food at the same time, steps at the same time, training, just making sure I get all of that done.
Yeah.
And then same with my, obviously after my shoe, I did struggle a teeny tiny bit with it. Like, I just wanted to eat everything.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm kind of like, okay, I know the food's going to be there, so I'm hoping this time around it won't be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like it'll be a bit better. Also, I think as well as like knowing you're going to feel that way actually helps. Like even I've been like that this week. I'm like, I finish a meal and I'm like, I want to eat again. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you need to do it.
It doesn't mean you need to do it. Like, it's okay to be hungry. And like, it's funny because when you're dieting, you tell yourself that. You're like, it's fine to be hungry. But when you're finished, you're like, no. But actually, it's like, no, it's fine. Like, it's actually fine. Yeah, I think that
it doesn't make that much of a difference.
I always say check-in's check-in. So like, because, you know, now it's like, okay, Monday to Thursday, Thursday to Monday. Like, how easy is that when you break it down?
Yeah.
And also, like, when you know that, like, I'm the one who has to do the worrying.
Yeah. I just do the job.
Yeah, you just do. like it's like I'm the one who has to think about if you're going to be ready. Yeah. And I know you're going to be. So
yeah.
That's fine.
Exciting. It's exciting.
I'm so excited. I already can't wait for all the show days.
Me too.
To see, and like I know there's going to be loads of the team is probably going to come and watch. So no pressure.
No pressure.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of
fun.
It
will be. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah.
So fun.
So that's good.
But right, I think we will wrap it up here.
Yeah.
So make sure, if you haven't already given Emma a follow, make sure to follow her Instagram, all her social medias. She also does have her own podcast, so the Big Gym Sister podcast. If you're not subscribed, if you haven't listened, make sure you go check that out as well, because she has some very, very good episodes on there.
Thanks. Yeah, that's where all my rambles are, so you can
I love them.
Oh, stop. I just love talking about myself, obviously. I'm like, okay, just a quick update on me. 20 minutes later, I'm like, am I vain?
I love that though.
Yeah, no, people say
that. Like, you're literally just being you.
I know. I one time I had somebody comment and they were like, she does talk a lot at the start about herself. And I was like, you know what? I do. I do.
Yeah, and that is completely fine.
Yeah, it's my podcast.
Exactly. You can talk about anything you want.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And I will see you guys in the next one.
See ya.